I just wanted the truth. Nothing more, nothing less, just the truth. So I'll start from the beginning and we'll go from there. I was born to Egyptian parents. We were raised in Saudi Arabia, and my mother left my father because it was an abusive marriage. So, um, she left him and came to the United States to get away, and to start a new life. I was 3 years old at the time, and I was the youngest of four. So I was a child, and I had three older siblings. And it was them and my mother who came to the United States. So everything was left behind: family, friends, money, whatever was over there. I was a child. I didn't have any memory of the experiences over there. Um, but that was the beginning. So came here to the United States and was raised here all my life. And growing up, it was not great. To put it simply, it was not good. Um, from what I can remember, there was a lot of yelling, screaming, fighting, lots of disagreements. My dad actually, he came to the United States at some point to try and save the marriage, I suppose, but that did not work. So I remember him leaving when I was very young, um, and it was just bad. It was just a bad experience growing up. Um, and so that was my first taste of Islam. Um, it was brokenness, it was division, it was trauma, it was abuse. Um, and so growing up, I'm just wondering, like, all right, then who am I, and what is true and what is real, and um, who can I trust, and what can I trust? Um, so much of my life, I was pursuing truth and meaning and purpose and identity. I'm just like, who am I? Why am I here? Why do I have this kind of life? Where all I really knew was brokenness and division. And rarely did I feel loved by my family. Um, and it was very sad. It was a very, very sad time growing up. So I remember, reading books like Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, and resonating a lot with that book, just suffering. And um, it it opened my eyes a little bit as to the realities of this world. Um, but I was still seeking. Like, I was still wondering, just who am I, and why am I here, and What is this life about? So I fast forward, into my teenage years and my early 20s. I'm um, in college and still just on the same path, the same road of, Omar, why are you here? What's your purpose? And who are you? I rarely ever fit in anywhere, whether it was my family or friends. I always felt like an outcast, and um, I always felt like other, and that was hard. That was hard. Um, and in college, trying to find my way, I felt the same way, being around college students, and you see how um, you know, they seem to be on such a straight trajectory in life, right? Just go to college and graduate and get your job and get married, raise your kids, buy a house, this and that, all that good stuff. And I was just like, that hasn't been my experience, not even close. I was more so like, oh my gosh, I'm still like processing things that, happened from the past, and feeling like I was abandoned and didn't have a place to call home. Um, so just not having a place where I fit in anywhere. And I'm just like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Like, why am I feeling like this? And it was just so hard. It was so hard. Actually, I was in and out of college several times, because it never felt like the right path for me. So I would often attend for a semester or two or three. If I were lucky, I would stay for three, and then I would leave. And that would happen several times throughout my life. Um, and I realized, looking back, it was because I had so much built up pain that needed to be healed before I could move forward in life. It was kind of like, how can I, decide on a career path um, when I'm hurting and when I'm in pain? Like, how can I decide on what I want to do for the rest of my life when I don't even know who I am and I'm still struggling to figure those things out? And so um, that took a lot of time. That took a lot of time. It took a lot of healing. It took a lot of patience, and a lot of searching. As it relates to Islam, in terms of finding identity, I told you about my first experience with that. It wasn't good. What I remember and experience from that was just severe division and brokenness in my immediate family, but not only that, but my extended family. Um, I had cousins and aunts, and even their families were severely fractured. And I'm just like, God, why? God, why? Like, why me? I was just calling out, God, why me? And it was like, it didn't matter where I looked, whether it was my immediate family, my extended family. It was just broken, 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 broken. And do you see the theme yet? Like, it was just extreme sadness and depression for much of my life, just trying to untangle the wounds and heal them. And I eventually entered into a romantic relationship that would really illuminate everything for me. I'm not going to get into all of those details. I'll just share what is appropriate in the context for this video. So, I told you how I was searching for my identity and purpose and just meaning. Who am I? Who is Omar? So, I entered into this relationship which would ultimately destroy me. And I was blindsided by the dynamics of the relationship. So it turned out that that person was a covert narcissist. I had no framework whatsoever to understand. I was blindsided. What that relationship ultimately showed me was that um, deception is real, like absolutely real, because I had no framework whatsoever to understand what took place. And I had no idea until the very end of it when I was completely ghosted and abandoned and just thrown to the street like trash. And this was a long-term relationship. It was over 5 years, and it ended in such um, a terrible and inhumane way. I just I couldn't believe it, and so that wrecked me. That was um, the darkest time in my life, where I experienced the end of myself, because I had trusted in myself and my own goodness, and I believed myself to be self righteous and morally superior and high and mighty, and that my values were so much more higher um, than others. And um, in that way, I was humbled because looking back, what I realized is God was like, and he did it lovingly. Okay, Omar, you think so highly of yourself. Um, I'm going to put you in this situation where um, you're going to see who you really are. You're seeking purpose and meaning and truth, right? Okay, so I'll show you the truth. And that he did. That he did. So God put a mirror up to myself and said, Omar, this is who you are and this is what you are, because the circumstances in the relationship revealed to me who I was based on how I responded, how I treated others, and who I was trusting in, which ultimately was myself. And where did it lead me? It led me to absolute destruction. I might have said it already, but it was death. It was a spiritual death that I experienced at the very end of that relationship, and I was devastated. Um, if there is a hell on earth, I experienced it. And what is hell? Hell is complete separation from God. It is being thrown into the lake of fire. And If there is a hell on earth, I experienced that because that was how I felt. I felt absolute darkness. I felt complete separation from God. I felt like I was thrown into a dark hole that was never ending, a bottomless pit. And that was the darkest moment of my life. And so I always regarded myself to be a very, very strong person. I told you how self righteous I was and how I always regarded myself as a very strong person. I always carried myself in that way. Um, but what took place there in this romantic relationship where there was betrayal and deception and lies on a deep subconscious level. That was a pain that was far too great for me to bear on my own. I could not do it. I was bedridden for days and weeks at a time. And I realized I needed God. I needed God, that this situation was far too great for any man, let alone myself, to handle. And I remember crying out to God. I'm just like, God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, God. I'm sorry that it took this situation for me to turn to you, but I need you. I need you and I need you desperately because I can't do this by myself. I'm so sorry, God. Please help me. Please, please help me, God. I need you. And I remember there were um, days where I would go on walks just crying to God, like, God, please, I'm so sorry. I need you. I'm so sorry. Please help me. Please help me. Please help me, God. I need you. And he answered. He answered. Um, the pain went away. I was healed. He healed me. And it was not anything I did. There was nothing I could do. I was powerless. It didn't matter what video I watched or things I would tell myself. What I experienced was nothing like anything I've experienced before. And only a God could heal me in that way. And so I realized then that because my previous framework and ideology about the world and humanity was completely shattered, that I needed a new one. I needed to know then what really is true. What is the truth then? If what I experienced and up to this point was not true, because look at where it led me into destruction, then what is true? Because now I need a new framework in which to through which to look at the world. And this took some time because I was still processing everything that just took place. And I still needed to move forward though. So eventually I got around to just Googling, what is the truth? I know it might sound silly, but that's where I was in life. What is the truth? And I came across several books, many of which were just man-made. And I read the titles, the descriptions, the summaries, what have you. And it just didn't sit right in my soul. I'm just like, I could read these, but like my soul is searching for something else, something deeper. And so eventually I came to the Bible. I came across the Bible. I saw that as one of the search results. And my first reaction was, ain't no way. There's no way I'm reading that. Absolutely not. I'm not reading that. Um, and then I avoided it. I put it off for a few days or weeks, but then I was still struggling. I was like, I need to know what is true, what is real. I need a new framework to you know operate in this world. I need to know what's true and what's real, right? Um, and so eventually, I just told myself, Omar, just read it. Just read the Bible. How much harm could it do if you just read it, right? And so, um, you know, coming from a Muslim background, the Bible is somewhat respected, but mostly frowned upon. And so I had that perspective. I had that mentality going into it because it was baked into me naturally. And so I had to confront that. And it was hard. It was really hard. But because of the pain that I was experiencing, I had to do something about it. So I did. I just turned to the first book of the Bible. I started at the beginning in Genesis 1, verse 1, which reads, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." And I was sold just from that alone. And I'll tell you why. Because up to this point, my framework had been, as it relates to religion, that all religion is an attempt for man to control. Religion is an attempt to control people and have them submit to a certain type of ideology. And I was of the belief that I want to be free. And religion, no, thank you. Like, I'm good. God, sure, I respect you and I care about you, but I'm good. Like, I can do this. I can navigate life on my own. Like, sorry, sir, but no, thank you. That was always my mentality, right? And it didn't matter what religion. It could have been Christianity. It could have been Islam. It could have been Buddhism. It doesn't matter. It didn't matter. I always had that. I told you I was very prideful and self-righteous. I always had that belief in myself. And how could you not? Because that's what this society preaches, to trust in yourself and to be yourself and to trust your heart, right? So this applies to many of us today, right? A lot of us are that way because of society. And so I was no different. My experience was no different. And so I always had this this perspective about religion. I always had that perspective about religion. And so when I turned to Genesis 1, verse 1, and I read, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth," I realized, wait a minute. God is telling me something. God is meeting me at my end, and God is telling me about my beginning and where I come from and my identity and my purpose and where it all stems from. In the beginning, who created? God created. And so I was at my end at that point, and it was as if God was telling me, Omar, this is the beginning. this is what happened originally. This was how things were supposed to be. In the beginning, God created in the creation story, and then the fall of man. I realized I experienced the fall of man, and I had to experience the fall of man to realize that I needed God, because that's how prideful I was. And in God's wisdom, he knew not only when to reach me, but also how to reach me, right? And so he put me in a situation of that relationship where I was torn down and stripped down to nothing, essentially. For me to be able to get to a place where I could finally seek him, because no one in the goodness of their heart purposely seeks out God. No one does, because we're sinful beings who believe that we know what's best, and it is only through God and through his spirit that draws us to him. And so God, I knew in my own ways and pursuing my own path, I would never seek after God if he didn't call me to, if he didn't tear me down in the way that he did. Because I told you my perspective. I'm good. I got this, God. No, thank you. I respect you, but no, thank you. I can do this myself. Where did that lead me? Right? And so I hadn't become a follower of Jesus yet, but I was learning more about God. I kept reading, through Genesis, and then I read up to Second Kings. And that's when I kind of just put it down a little bit. I put the Bible down, and the next step for me was, okay, well, Jesus is a big part of Christianity. I should probably learn about him, right? Because I've heard something about, you know, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and that no one can come to the Father except through him. So, all right, I need to know this guy and what's he about. And so I turned to the Gospels, right? That's where we find and learn about Jesus. Um, and the same thing happened. I confronted my beliefs about God, about Jesus. I was taught that, okay, Jesus is he's a figure of Christianity. Christianity is religion. Religion is an attempt to control people and to live by these set of standards and rules. But then I encountered Jesus himself for who he said he is when I read through scripture, and that changed everything. I realized, how could you not love this man? How could you not love him? He was the most beautiful, perfect man to walk the earth, and will always be, because of what he's done. And I realized, in the same way that I was deceived in my relationship, I was deceived about God. And again, in God's infinite wisdom, he knew how to reach me and when to reach me. as I was deceived in that relationship, he was telling me, Omar, you've also been deceived about me. And that this was just all coming to a head for me. And I knew that this couldn't be anything other than God trying to speak to me. Like, Omar, I'm here. I'm here for you and I'm here with you. I know the circumstances that you were born to, but I'm with you and I'm here for you and I want to have a relationship with you. But first we gotta tear down what was not you. You know, the all the, the protective behaviors, having your guard up, super high boundaries, and, having to live in survival mode for much of my life. Um, God was telling me, Omar, I am for you, and I want you to know me as I am. And I fell in love with the man. How could you not? He was perfect and he was sinless. And he died for us. He died for us, for all of humanity. What what other person can say that? What other person can say that they have been raised from the dead? In what other religion can you find that? And so before I fully trusted and believed in Jesus as my Lord and my Savior, I still had questions. And um, I wanted to still do my due diligence. And I did tons of research, about Islam and the Quran, in addition to Christianity and the Bible. And I realized, okay, so I was born to a Muslim home, and of course, I didn't have a great experience with Islam, but I should still at least give it a fair chance, right? And so I told myself, Omar, just put your feelings aside, give it a fair chance, give Islam a fair chance. Don't make, um, a decision based out of just pure emotion. Do it from your heart. Do it from what. Uh, be convinced in your heart and in your mind and in your spirit that what you trust and believe in, you trust and believe in it to be true. And so going through the Quran and doing my research about it, I believe that a holy book will contain no errors. If it's truly from God, that it would stand the test of time, that it wouldn't change. That's not what I encountered in the Quran. I encountered the Islamic dilemma, which is the Quran affirming the Bible, yet also contradicting it. And I'm just like, there's some, good things written in the Quran, but I'm of the belief if there's just one thing that is wrong, one thing that um, could show that is not consistent, then there's no way that it can be true. I'm I just 'cause I believe God is perfect. I believe God has put that in our hearts, that God is perfect, that he knows all things and that he knows how to communicate to us. And so the biggest thing in the Quran is that it it gets many stories wrong about prophets, and most importantly, um, it gets Jesus wrong. Isa is not the same as Jesus Christ in the Bible, and it denies the crucifixion, yet it affirms the Bible, which was written hundreds of years before the Quran. And so it's this, it's this slight deception where, you know, um, it sounds good, right? Islam sounds good. One God, and, just follow these certain set of rules, and you're good, right? Just, follow these rules. There's one God, you're good, right? It sounds good. But when you look into it and you read it, there are a lot of concerns. And I could not get behind it. I did not experience that when I went through the Bible. God was the same from the beginning in Genesis to the end in Revelation. He was consistent through and through from beginning to end. And that to me is symbolic of God, one who is the same at one point in history to another point in history, one point in time to another point in time. He's the same, meaning his character never changes. He's always the same, and he didn't contradict himself ever. So I realized, through growing up in a Muslim home and going through a relationship of deception, and then finally learning about Christ, the true Isa, Jesus Christ, that there is spiritual warfare in this world, that God and Satan are real. And this world is a spiritual battleground, that there is good and evil, and that God is seeking to save his children. And there is an active enemy, Satan, who is doing all that he can to steal them away from God. And he does that through false religions. He does that through deception. And he works through people who do not believe in Jesus, the true Jesus. And he does that through religions, false religions. And so this whole experience opened my eyes to that, to this spiritual battleground. And so I urge you, to you watching this video, whether you come from a Muslim background, or you're a non-believer, or you're a skeptic, or you just randomly stumbled upon this video, I urge you to learn about the true Jesus in the Bible, because he is who he says he is. And if you humble yourself where you're willing to encounter him and seek him, you will find him. You will find him, and you will meet him and learn that he is who he says he is, the Jesus of the Bible. And so that's my story. The scales of my eyes fell off as I was learning about Jesus, and I learned about the deception in the world, and he's true and he's real. So this channel is new. And one thing that we do here is we have conversation together about difficult topics such as this, such as faith and religion, and not only that, but just identity and purpose and meaning and truth, all of these things. And this is a safe space for us to explore those things. And one thing that I will be doing in the future is I'll be holding live streams where we can all gather um, as a community and ask these tough questions and learn together. And so I invite you to subscribe to this video and to give it a like if you liked it, um, because I want you here. I want you to learn and I want you to grow. I want you to challenge some of your deepest held beliefs. Um, and I also want to learn from you. I want to know about you and your story and, um, the things that you've walked through. And it would be awesome to be able to do that. So you can expect that from this channel as soon as, more people um, come to it and discover it. So again, if you could like the video, I'd truly appreciate that, and subscribe so that you could be a part of this family. Um, all right. Thank you so much, and God bless.